Today we are looking at media literacy. What is media literacy and why is it important for us? We can see that since last year, just an example, there has been a whole lot of news and social issues going on with so many opinions and different narratives. We started from coronavirus, Black Lives Matter, vaccination, and now there is a whole lot on anti-Asian hate crimes. I'd like to play a short clip about that, just to get your mind racing about the current issue we have now.
Imagine just walking down the street. Then this. An Asian woman, 65 years old, kicked to the ground, stomped by a man allegedly shouting, "You don't belong here." No one helps the woman. Instead, this man closes the door.
How does a woman get punched and stomped on in front of a luxury building and the doorman closes the door? Isn't that the perfect symbolism of exactly what is happening right now?
The suspect arrested today, charged with a hate crime.
We will never accept or tolerate hate or violence of any kind in our great city.
Another attack at an already painful time for the Asian American community.
Our people are getting killed for no reason.
The shootings in Atlanta killing people, 6 of them Asian women at Asian-owned businesses. A 75-year-old grandmother punched in San Francisco, all in the last month. Anti-Asian hate crimes up 150% across major U.S. cities over the past year, fueled by the pandemic, exacerbated, advocates say, by Donald Trump's rhetoric. How have you been feeling these past few weeks?
Sad and angry and fearful.
Those feelings made worse, Tiffany Chang says, by this inaction. Her organization has partnered to create free online training for how bystanders can respond.
That's what is needed most of all, is just that kindness and that willingness to be that stranger, to be that person who intervenes, to not be that person who closes the door on somebody in need.
In response to the attacks, the Biden administration announced plans this week to better address anti-Asian racism, including tasking the Justice Department with doing more to investigate hate crimes against the Asian American community. Ellen Morrow, CBC News, Washington.
So when you come across information and issues like this, how do you decipher? How do you feel about it? How do you differentiate facts from opinions? Media literacy is important for us and also our students to help or make them responsible citizens and conscious consumers of information.
Let me interject that, we have different types of reporting. There is the reporting that says the statements on the left. There's a lot of that type of reporting, as well as the CBS reporting that reports it as a negative. So we've got this mix. Who are we to believe? How are we to know what is the correct report? And that's where media literacy comes in.
Today, we are going to look a little deeper into media literacy, provide a rationale for teaching it across the curriculum, identify competencies that learners need to be media literate, and very important also, brainstorming ways to promote those competencies in our classroom. When we talk about literacy, we have been studying literacy in our classrooms for centuries. We study how to read, how to comprehend, how to analyze, how to understand text and all that. When it comes to literacy, I think we have it down. We know what to do. We know what to teach. But what about media? How do we become literate when it comes to the media? Being media literate it's important. It's an important skill because information is all over the place. how I receive my information is not the same as how you receive your information. So in our classroom, how do we come together to decipher, analyze, understand, and actually get the truth from the information that we receive? Now we're going to do a little hands-on activity, and what we're going to do is you are going to go to the internet and take about 7 minutes to jot down your ideas or the ideas that stand out for you when you search for literacy, digital literacy, information literacy, and visual literacy.
Let's talk about what you found. We've got literacy, which is something that's been around for hundreds of years, the notion that it's really important to be literate, and that that literacy means that you're able to read text and write text, be it cursive or print, but it's all about words. Digital literacy changes everything, doesn't it? And it's just as important. Information literacy changes everything, just as important. Visual literacy, being able to read images. A wonderful book came out in the 90s, the Rise of the Image, The Fall of the Word. You might know that book. It's pretty grand book. It made an argument, and at the time, it actually was a little bit like, no, not going to happen. Well, guess what? Really soon after that, it happened. So yeah, the fall of the word and the rise of the image. I want to say that as an ed tech person, my area of expertise, I think this is the most important issue we will confront in the next 50 years, because it speaks in education, because it speaks to what we need, what we must be doing in education. Because for a person to be literate, they have to be able to, for a person to be educated, they have to be literate. And we've got to figure out how to deal with this environment where information is flowing so freely. We as a nation don't believe in censorship, but we do believe in regulation, and something has to happen because we're in the very first uncensored environment in human history, and this internet, and it's doing all kinds of things to us that I think we don't want done. So what we want to do then is provide a very strong rationale for teaching media literacy across the curriculum. And we might, as was recommended last night, that we might include require a course in media literacy in schooling, but also it needs to be across the curriculum. We all need to, whether we teach art, whether we teach history, whether we teach science, math, whatever we teach, we need to be teaching media literacy, because students are they need to be able to receive the messages of mathematics, the messages of science, and those are taught through the media, and they're receiving a lot. So for instance, with science, they're receiving information about climate change. They're receiving information about evolution. They're receiving COVID and vaccine information that's all scientific, and they're getting lots and lots of mixed messages. How do they receive those messages? Mathematics, they need to know statistics so that they can understand logic. Statistics is all about probabilities, and so when they hear a message, or see a message in the media, they need to be able to evaluate. I thank you so much for that important idea. They need to be able to evaluate that content, those statistics that come across them, and say, well, that's really not likely. That isn't more likely than dying in a car accident, or, in the case of COVID, way more likely than dying. So they've got to be able to weigh what they're hearing. Language, there's lots of hypocrisies, and we want people to be able to hear those hypocrisies when they're confronted with them. Lots of double messages, that we want them to be able to hear inconsistencies and understand propaganda when they see it. Really important, so that they're evaluating those messages that come in. History, we've got lots of revisionist history taking place, and cancel history and cancel culture that's taking place right now. And we want people to know when that's happening so that they can make decisions. So rationale, we want you to really believe in the importance of media literacy. So, why do we need it? Well, to help people be more aware of cyberbullying when it's happening. A lot of kids think they're deserving of that bully, and we want them to know it when they see it and be able to stop it. We don't want them to be that person who closes the door and doesn't see it when it's happening to someone else. So we just want them to be literate visually and through media. We want them to be able to determine their digital footprint and the ethics and safety, all of these issues that are so important that being media literate helps with. So, and also for differentiated instruction. We want students to be able to use choice well, very well. And we want them to be able to make good choices and take different paths. We want all of our students to be able to take different pathways through their education. So being media literate is going to help them with that. The big reason why we need to be media literate is because there's bias out there. And there isn't a human being on earth that doesn't have biases. We all have biases. And they come in all kinds of different forms. Using search engines, very often we'll click on something. We want to know the answer to something. We'll click on the top link. We'll find that answer, and we'll take that answer for gospel. It's the first thing we came up with, and that's it, and then we go along with that. But what if that top link, as so often they are, is incorrect or is biased or is misinformed? The internet feeds us what we want to hear. That. So you're going to receive different content than I'm going to receive. We're all going to receive different content because the internet knows what our biases are. It's figured it out. It's a smart technology. It knows that I want wrinkle cream. I get advertisements all the time for wrinkle cream. So, they know it knows my age and it knows that that's, what I kind of like. So I want wrinkle cream. It's figured us out. And so given that it feeds our biases, the internet feeds our biases, and students need to know this. They must be taught that the internet is a smart technology, that there are lots of algorithms behind what we receive that tell us what we want to hear. And so we need to be very careful with believing that first click.
Yes.
So critical thinking, what is that? That's, teaching them how to explain an issue, talk it through, help me understand what you're thinking, have them do that, require that they do that, have them provide credible, convincing evidence. Well, why do you think that? What happened there? And then describe the influence of context and assumptions. We want them to understand that, and we want them to be able to generate, hypotheses, why they think this happened.
Yeah.
And what do they think is going to happen? What do they predict is going to happen next? And little ones can do that. Describe reasonable conclusions and related outcomes. This is basically what the American Association of Colleges and Universities has identified as the qualities of critical thinking. That if you were to type in the AAC and U critical thinking rubric, you would see their rubric for critical thinking that I use a lot in assessment of students' work.
We looked at some of the competencies that we want our students to know. Now, how do we promote those competencies? So that's what we are going to look at. And one of the ways that we can do that is by being intentional. It's an important word for me because without an intention, it will be difficult for you to incorporate media literacy into your curriculum. We don't have a separate curriculum that strictly teaches media literacy. So how do you promote that with the curricula that you have? And it is by being intentional. The other way too is if you are intentional and you want to use a metacognitive teaching approach, these are the steps that you can take, the learn, explore, apply approach. And what do I mean by that? So, for example, with the anti-Asian hate crime, the video that we watched, you let your student learn what is going on in the society, even if you don't let them know in the class that children are already hearing these messages. They are hearing information from their parents, from family members, and they already know a little bit of what is going on. So the first step is, just in case they haven't heard what is happening in the society, you let that information be available to them. And last night, there was one teacher who was saying that she has a CNN channel that she shows and shares with her student. And that's one of the ways that you can do that. If what you are showing is factual and is trustworthy. And then your next step is to explore the other narrative with your students. So, okay, your students have information from CNN and it's saying that this is what happened. The question you put to them, which is part of being critical and critical thinking, is like, okay, what are some other narratives that surround this particular issue? And then you allow them to explore. Once you're done with that, you help them to narrow down and critically analyze their thoughts with the information that they have available to them. And then they can apply by sharing or blogging their thought, blogging for the older students and sharing in like the various forms that you use in your classroom for younger students. And it's important for me for students to be able to put their thoughts out and share their thoughts, because the more we have facts in this world, proving facts, the less other people will be open to the wrong thing or narratives that do not that are not scientific, that are not proven. Try to use the learn, explore, apply approach in your classroom. There's also this curriculum, Be Internet Awesome, created by Google. It's mainly for grade 3 to grade 6, but it shows you, or it helps you teach students like how to share with care, how not to fall for fake news, and how to be secretive with some of the information, not oversharing. Because sometimes you overshare, you share something, and cyberbullying, for example, somebody will take it in a different way, and then bullying will be happening online, and your students don't know what to do. So they need to think about what they are actually sharing out there. Encourage the use of digital products. And we already know that our students are already into using these digital products. It's important to encourage them to use it more so that you can direct them on how to effectively use it. We don't have to tell, don't use this, don't go here, don't do, because they do it. They do it at home, they do it everywhere. So it's important that we allow them to do what they always do, but then direct them on how to critically use these digital products. And the last one I would like to talk about is setting technology limitations. I feel that it's important to do that because sometimes we go through a rabbit hole when we are finding information, and along the way we forget to verify the information that we are getting. So you start searching for something, first article, second article, okay, you verified and you know, and then you continue to go deeper and deeper and deeper, and it happens to me. I forget to verify those information that I'm getting, and I take those as the gospel, which shouldn't be. So for example, limit your search time, and then whatever information you have, just sit down and critically analyze and think about what you have in front of you.
So those are two really great techniques for helping your kids establish these competencies that they need so badly. Assignments, just give them assignments that require that they think critically. For instance, have them distinguish fact from opinion. And give them material that you know specifically to be unfactual so that they can learn how to determine that, establish when something is an opinion and when it's actually a fact. So, right? So practice critical thinking and skepticism when reading media messages. We want them to practice that and to look at something and say, is that true? And then have a system for determining the truth and the trust in that message. Determine credibility of the media messages, recognize your reliable sources. That's a critical thing because they're bombarded with messages, and a lot of the messages simply aren't credible, but they don't necessarily know that. And so they go for it. Well, I heard it on the internet, so it's got to be true. How to judge the accuracy and identify attributes of propaganda. Propaganda is all around us all the time, and we need to be able to know it when we hear it and see it. And describe how extremism comes to be. Hopefully an educated person doesn't go to the extremes. Hopefully a educated person is measured and right? So describe how ideas emerge and spread on TV and on the internet. So, because we know that there are some pretty substantial untruths, lies out there that have spread widely, and we want to teach people how to know when and why that happens and how that happens, so they become, good citizens and don't participate in that. This this graphic here, how to spot fake news. I strongly recommend just giving kids news and asking them to consider the source, asking them to, read beyond and check the author, what are the supporting sources? Is it a joke? Or is it really, April 1st, everybody always plays certain jokes on April 1st and we all grab onto them at first and then, oh, shoot, that was a joke.
Right.
Ask the experts and check your biases, check the date. Hey, is this old news or is it new news? So just, teach them how to find out what is real and what isn't. Okay, and so what else can we do to encourage these competencies? Help your students understand how and what they learn from media, because they need to be aware that media is impacting the way they think. It's really, really important that they know that. So media literacy includes asking specific questions, backing up opinions with examples, following media literacy steps. And we're going to go into 6 steps here in a minute. We'll take a piece of we'll look at that and look at those 6 steps to learn for yourselves what a given piece of media is, why it was made, and what you want to think about it. So we want our students to be doing a lot of this. Teaching kids media literacy is best incorporated into everyday activities. Just, they need to know because they're seeing media every day. It's part of what's impacting the way they think. So with little kids, little ones, you can discuss things they're familiar with. What are the objects in the classroom? What is it they're seeing? You can talk about what they've seen on TV recently, cereal commercials, food wrappers, etc. And with the older kids, obviously, they can be more evaluative in their processes and analytical in their processes. So let's get active with that. Let's go to the next slide. There are 6 questions that you can have your students ask, K-12, all the way down and all the way up. Who created this? Why did they make it? Who is the message for? And if they're asking these 3 questions, and we've got some details here that we're going to give you later as we go through this process, and then 3 more. What techniques are being used to make this message credible or believable? What details were left out and why? That's important, right? What wasn't said is important too, not just what is said. And then how did the message make you feel? Right? So kids will be able to ask and answer these questions regarding media messages that are sent to them. So as they become more aware of and exposed to news and current events, you can apply media literacy steps to radio, TV, and any online information, regardless of the medium.
We do hope that writing out these 6 questions or looking at these 6 questions when you come across any information will be useful for you and your students. The main takeaway, if I may iterate, is that media literacy is quite relevant and quite important for us as teachers and also for our students. It is important for the country. And we hope that today we've given you some tools that you can use in your classroom with your students to be critical thinkers when it comes to media. Thank you very much for staying with us. And